Welcome into the college football every game on the board podcast, part number 1 with our leadoff hitter here, Matt Josephs from sportsmemo.com. Follow him on Twitter at midmajormatt. Matt, welcome in. How you feeling?
Feeling good, Drew. Hit my Maction bet last night on Ball State plus the points. Got another Maction bet for tonight, and looking forward to it.
All right, Maction in full swing, guys, and that's where we'll start with Wednesday night's games. We got a trifecta of Maction. We got 2 on Thursday and then back to a 3-game slate on Friday before hitting the top of the Saturday card. This is Every Game on the Board podcast on YouTube as well, the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Follow Matt on Twitter at midmajormatt. We're going down in order, hitting every single game on the college football card. If you go to the Wager Talk live odds screen, those little numbers on the college football live odds screen, we're just going down in numerical order. Starting tonight, that's Wednesday, November 9th, 7 p.m. Eastern start here, Matt. 107-108, Northern Illinois and Western Michigan. Pick'em game. If you're new to sports betting, that just means pick the winner. No line. 49.5 being the total. What do you like in Northern Illinois and Western Michigan starting us off here week 11?
So my bet's in this game, but I'll still give some thoughts on it. This is not the season Northern Illinois thought they were going to have. Obviously, I picked them to win the MAC, so this is not the season I thought they were going to have. But injuries have been a massive issue, especially at quarterback. They had some guy I've never even heard of at quarterback last week. So you have to wonder what their motivation is. And then Western Michigan, who knows what their motivation is? They've been miserable this season. Jack Salapak is questionable for this game, but also kind of factoring in is they like this kid Borquette, the quarterback, but they also want to redshirt him and get another year out of him, and he's approaching that 4-game limit here. So the quarterback situation up in the air for Western Michigan. It feels like an under, but this could also be one of those wacky 35-31 Maction games we see on a Tuesday or Wednesday night.
All right, man. Next game up, Buffalo and Central Michigan. 53 being the total, -2.5. That's Central Michigan as the home favorite, Matt. Does need to be noted, this was pick'em up until either late last night or early this morning, and a 2.5-point move. That's, relatively large, speaking for a side move day of game. We got the Bulls and the Chippewas going at 7 o'clock Eastern here, Matt.
So speaking of teams who didn't think this is where they'd be, you have Central Michigan, who had big aspirations for this season. We noticed a difference in their offense. Lou Nichols was out. He came back for this game. The running back was huge. They won the game against Northern Illinois in the Battle of the Malays last week. And then you look at Buffalo, and there was a turnover regression that was due to come to Buffalo, and it came last week in a big way against Ohio. I kind of lean towards Central Michigan here. I didn't play this game at all. I don't have a play in this one, but you have to wonder if Buffalo's a little hurting after last week's loss to Ohio, and if Central Michigan's going to keep playing better because their running back is healthy, even though they've played 3 different quarterbacks last week.
Yeah, and Matt, no, good breakdown. I agree with you. What about the travel spot here? This is cross division, Buffalo to Mount Pleasant, Michigan. How much do you put into that from action?
Not really.
No?
Unless
Okay.
there's weather involved. Obviously these teams last played Tuesday or Wednesday last week, so it's not like it's a quick turnaround. So not too much.
We got Kent State, Bowling Green up next. All 3 games, guys, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific here. -2 in the hook. That's Kent State as the road favorite. 55.5 being the total. So it's Kent State at Bowling Green. Something I've noticed here, Matt, is Kent State pretty much up until like last week or maybe even this week took money, and they've been a money burner. There's groups out there, maybe multiple bettors that have lost money on Kent State coming into the Maction, mainly due to they had such a difficult out of conference schedule that people thought they would really kind of run it up on MAC opponents. It really hasn't come to fruition. What's your read here tonight?
Well, I posted it on Twitter, and I haven't done it yet, and I don't know if I will. I want to fire on Bowling Green plus the points tonight. I like the Falcons in this spot. They've got the better defense of the two of them. Heck, you and I could be part of a better defense than Kent State. They're one of the worst in the country. And Matt McDonald, despite the fact he's got that awful hitch in his throws, has been keeping the turnovers down. They've got better weapons, especially if Dante Cephas doesn't play. Cooper's also been a little banged up for Kent State. We know that Schlee obviously has been banged up, although he came back last week. So I really want to play Bowling Green. I haven't gotten to the window yet, Drew. Trying to wait to see if anything comes out about Cephas for tonight's game, because he makes a big difference for Kent State's team. So right now for me, it's Bowling Green or pass.
He's Matt Josephs. Wednesday's in the books. Follow him on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. We got Thursday, November 10th slate, 2 games, both at 7:30. I don't know what college football's doing. Why not separating them a little bit? But hey, it is what it is here, Matt. We're breaking them down either way. Tulsa and Memphis heading to America's Conference here. The American Conference, that is. 61.5 being the total. -6 in the hook. That's Memphis at home in the Liberty Bowl off of a tough loss against UCF.
Yeah, you just mentioned a tough loss for Memphis in that last game. And you got Tulsa, who never seems to take advantage of the situational spots. They've had a couple this season. They've been disappointing. 2 disappointing teams here. It feels like maybe it's an over. And when teams don't give a crap, Drew, they just score on each other. We know how Memphis plays these high-scoring games. So probably it could be an over here. But right now, I don't have anything in that one. I can't trust either of these 2 teams right now.
We got 7:30 as well. Georgia Southern at UL Lafayette, 61.5 being the total, -3. That's Louisiana, of course, in Lafayette, Louisiana. So Georgia Southern making the trip from Statesboro to Lafayette and catching 3 here. You liking anything in the Sun Belt?
Well, Georgia Southern games always seem to be overs. One of my wins last week was a win on the over in that South Alabama game. It was 60 and it went to 69. You have to wonder what Louisiana's like right now after losing that tough game to Troy. They were up big. Just watched bad beats from yesterday, and of course, Louisiana's effort against Troy was on there because they were favorites, and then they blew the game. So have to wonder where Louisiana's head's at. They do have a defense that should be able to slow down Georgia Southern, but motivation becomes a huge factor here, Drew, for a lot of these games that we're going to talk about.
Matt, I'm interested in your next opinion here. Friday Night Lights, guys, November 11th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. East Carolina at Cincinnati. We're seeing Cincinnati -5-point home favorites, 52.5 being the total. I don't know. I had the Bearcats circled here, Matt. Do you have any interest in getting involved in Cincy?
So, as I've said on here the past couple of times, I was 0-3 so far this season on East Carolina, so I've been wrong on them on everything. Cincinnati has to keep winning, Drew, if they want to have any shot at anything here. East Carolina coming off their bye week after an impressive win over BYU in a game they probably shouldn't have won on the road in terms of the situation. So ECU's been an impressive team, and they've had 2 weeks to study. The one thing to consider here, Drew, is the tropical storm that's heading through. There's going to be rain and wind potentially. It's something you're going to have to watch for this weekend with some of the weather forecasts if the track changes at all. But right now, rain and wind potentially in this game, that will certainly change some things as well.
Yeah, you're right. It is an important game for both teams. We got UCF and Tulane playing in the American this weekend. So obviously one of them going to lose. Cincinnati right there with 1 loss with both Tulane and UCF. SMU and East Carolina kind of knocking on the door behind them, as well as Houston. So it's coming down to the end, and what the top 2 teams, there's no more divisions in the American. So it's just going to be the top 2 playing the championship game. Do you know, Matt?
Correct. Yeah, the top 2 teams are in the championship game. And as you said, Tulane and UCF kind of have an edge right now, but they're also playing each other.
Who do you think wins the American when it's all said and done?
Well, I mean, I have money on UCF, and so I'm hoping they at least get there if I wanted to hedge. I think UCF has been the most impressive. Tulane has done well, but I don't know necessarily how many great wins they have. The Kansas State win's nice, of course. Should be a fun one, though, with some different blood if Cincinnati doesn't make it.
Yeah, not sure if we have the UCF Tulane game. I don't think we do in section number 1. Do you have an opinion on that one? Have you looked at it?
I have not looked at it yet, but
okay.
I mean, I would say, Tulane's been impressive with the defense. Central Florida's got some good defense. I would probably look at an under there potentially, but as I said, I haven't really looked at it too much yet.
Yeah, and the Big Easy on Saturday. We got 9:30 Eastern, 121, 122 as we're making our way down in numerical order on the Wager Talk Live odds screen. Colorado and USC. We get the Trojans -34-point home favorites, 66 being the total. Tough year for Colorado. Heading to the Coliseum, catching 34. Does it interest you?
I don't like these games where you have to name your score. USC has UCLA up next. That's a game they're going to be focused on. I would, if your book offers it, play a team total over on USC in the first half. You should get a focused Trojan effort in the first half, but after that, who knows? If they do let down a little bit, maybe Colorado can score some points here, but I really don't like these name your score things, and I really just want to kind of focus on USC in the first half when we know they kind of want to get in the lead, and that way they could start resting guys for the big rivalry game next week.
Fresno State and UNLV in the nightcap on Friday night, 10:30 Eastern kick in this one, Matt. 9.5. That's Fresno as the road favorite, ticked up a full point from the opener. 60.5 being the total. This is in Las Vegas. And I believe what Fresno State's quarterback came back, probably a big reason for the move.
Yeah, Jake Haener is back. He's played a couple games for them. You would know better than I do about Las Vegas football, but UNLV seems a little live here. If their offense can get going a little bit, I know Robbins has been injured and there's been some injury problems on that side of the ball, but I have a feeling this could be a shootout and might have a little bit of interest in the home dog in this one.
All right, guys, let's head to the Saturday, November 12th slate. We got 125, 126, and we'll hit the first couple games at the top before we bring in Teddy Covers for part number 2 at 3:45 Eastern. But let's start off in the ACC here for the first 2 games on Saturday, Matt. 125, 126, UNC at Wake Forest. So these two teams pretty close to each other in terms of where the college towns are located. And I believe this is the highest total game on the board, as high as 78 at Circa in Las Vegas. 77.5 seems to be the consensus total here. -3.5. That's the Demon Deacons at home in Winston-Salem to start us off on Saturday, Matt.
Yeah, UNC won this game 58-55 last year, and they could approach that once again. Neither team has a good defense. Both teams have good offenses. I don't love playing high 70s totals. I might look to a team total in this one. UNC's is around 36.5, Wake's around 40.5. So I would say if you have more faith in one of the offenses than the other, take their over on their team total. That way you don't have to worry about what the other team does. But this should be a great shootout. Remember, these two teams twice in the last 6 or 7 years have played each other as non-conference games because it's that big of a rivalry. So this game means a lot to both teams, but I think there'll be plenty of points. I say take the offense you trust more in this one. Take their team total over.
Staying in the ACC, next one up, Florida State and Syracuse, 8 p.m. Eastern in the Dome, Matt. As a Syracuse alum, interested in your opinion here. 6.5, that's Florida State, the Noles, heading up north, 51 being the total. Are you liking anything in Syracuse, New York, Saturday night?
Can't make a bet on this game until I hear about Garrett Schrader, and we're probably not going to until Saturday when some intrepid reporter puts a leak out or whatever. Their offense just did not look very good against Pittsburgh last week with Del Rio Wilson under center. Their defense keeps losing guys left and right. Garrett Williams 2 weeks ago. Syracuse, thank God they got bowl eligibility because they may not win a game the rest of the year with all the injuries that they've had. It is the final home game of the season. You wonder if Florida State's a little bit let down after the huge rivalry win here. So I'm leaning towards Syracuse, Drew, but I can't fire away until I kind of get some thought as to whether or not Garrett Schrader is going to play.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, I think everything points to Florida State except what you were just talked about there, the schedule spot. I know Florida is the end of the year, but really, if you've lived in Florida, it's Florida State Miami is really Florida State's biggest opponent. And they were down in Miami and Hard Rock, probably the most southern Division I outside of FAU home field. Now they're going all the way up to northern New York. I don't know, man. That travel spot alone doesn't make me want to lay near a touchdown. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and obviously Syracuse final home game of the year, that's a factor. And the one thing I might look at is Sean Tucker's unders if you do player props, because he has been lightly used lately, and they're almost using him as a decoy. If Schrader comes back, that'll be a big factor, but it's hard to place a bet here, Drew, because Syracuse is just that much different between Garrett Schrader and Del Rio Wilson.
Matt Josephs at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. Check him out, sportsmemo.com. We got next game up here. Well, actually, guys, check them out the last 3 years in college football, all profitable, including 72-46 this year, 130-98 last year, and 98-59 in 2020. Most profitable CFB handicapper on Sports Memo the last 3 years, second most this season, and off to a good start, profitable start in college basketball. So he knows his college basketball, knows his college football. It's in his name. At Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. We got next game up 129-130. Liberty and Connecticut. The Flames -14 in the hook on the road, 45 being the total in Stores, Connecticut, Matt.
Well, it's weird to say. The scheduling spot benefits UConn. UConn needs one win to get bowl eligible. They probably won't get it this week. They probably won't get it next week because they play Army. And Liberty coming off the win at Arkansas now has to go to Sleepy Stores. Everything's kind of saying take UConn plus the points here. The problem is I think the college football committee not putting Liberty in their top 25 last week kind of motivated the team. A lot of people in this area, at least, are talking about the fact that they're not in that top 25. Not that it matters a ton, but I think that kind of give Liberty a little motivation here to not only go to Stores, but to go to Stores and win by a lot here. There's also the possibility that the remnants of, Nicole, whatever we're calling it, is going to be in the area. So if there's rain, you want to trust the team that runs it a little bit better. And Day Hunter is a really good running back for Liberty, the Hawaii transfer. So there's some conflicting things here. The spot says take UConn, but the disrespect factor of the college football playoff committee says Liberty's going to want to run it up if they can.
Sure. And for what it's worth, bringing up Nicole, I'm actually talking from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and it's pretty windy here, Matt. It's coming to us. It's a pretty large system. So something to keep in mind there, guys, weather-wise for this weekend and handicapping totals and sides in college football. We got Virginia Tech and Duke up next here, Matt. Guys, you can see Matt Joseph's Richmond, ESPN Richmond at 3:00, right? That's when your radio show is?
Yep, top of the hour, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern time, ESPNRichmond.com, or go to your iHeartRadio app. You can find ESPN Richmond in there, 106.1 FM.
Yeah, ESPN Richmond there. He hosts the radio show, and a team he covers pretty closely here, Virginia Tech at Duke. Blue Devils, -9.5 at most shops right now, 49.5 being the total here, Matt.
So, I mean, Virginia Tech has lost 2 straight games. They've been outscored 12-0 in the fourth quarter against Duke and NC State and Georgia Tech. They both lost to backup quarterbacks. I just wonder where Tech's head's at. I mean, the next 2 games are quote unquote more important for Virginia Tech. They're not making a bowl game. They've got Liberty on the road and then Virginia at home. This is a team I just don't want to back right now. Problem is I don't necessarily believe in Duke. I mean, look at what happened last week. It was, they nearly lost to Boston College, who has one offensive weapon here. I do like Riley Leonard. I can't lay the points with Duke, but I'm certainly not playing anything on Virginia Tech because I don't know where their head's at. This game just doesn't mean anything for the Hokies in the grand scheme of things.
133, 134, the rotation number for the next one. Kicking us off on Saturday, 12 noon Eastern. Notre Dame and Navy. Navy is the home team. However, it's at M&T Stadium I'm seeing here on the odds board. I believe that's in Baltimore where the Ravens play. Not 100% sure, though. Total of 40 here, Matt. Low total, -15.5. That's the Irish as the quote-unquote road favorite.
Well, everybody's going to tell you Navy's the play here. Notre Dame coming off the win against Clemson. Navy has one of the best run defenses in America. That's something that Notre Dame wants to do. But the problem is they can throw the ball a little bit. I mean, if you're Navy, you got to stack the box and force them to throw it and then double cover Michael Mayer because Michael Mayer is going to beat everybody. And I'd almost look at a Michael Mayer prop or 2 over there because I think he's going to be very busy in this game. The situation says take Navy. They've been better as of late. The problem is, I don't know how much they're going to score here. Their team total is 13.5. Notre Dame's is 28.5. I might look at the under on Notre Dame's team total. I think Navy's defense can hold them under that. But once again, if Notre Dame's focused, they should be able to win this game rather easily. The question is, will they be?
And Matt, I mean, I know a lot of the listeners point out on Twitter, guys, Matt's been really good with his most confident play of the segment. And for a while there, you were riding the Military Academy's first quarter under. Does it interest you here?
Man, not really, because Notre Dame could certainly run it up. And plus it's a low total, so therefore you're going to get a really low number. Not in this situation, Drew. I don't think so.
Okay, we got next game up, heading to the Big 12, Oklahoma at West Virginia. Sooners -8 on the road, 67 being the total. I don't know. I got the Mountaineers circled here, Matt. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I kind of do too. Oklahoma off the loss to Baylor. I mean, what is Oklahoma playing for the rest of the season? The problem is West Virginia's defense is so bad. I mean, it's even an unfocused Oklahoma team can score 28 on West Virginia. The other factor here, and this is obviously, of course, Wednesday, things can change. It's probably part of Nicole, cold weather and scattered showers, which will certainly, I think, help West Virginia because if you're Oklahoma, you just lost to Baylor, you're playing in Morgantown, and then you've got rain and wind and cold. Like, what's your motivation for this game? So the lean is to West Virginia, but certainly if the weather changes and it becomes a little bit warmer or becomes less rainy, I'd certainly look in the over in this game because West Virginia can't stop a nosebleed.
We got Pittsburgh and Virginia up next in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Kicking us off on Saturday, 12 noon Eastern. We're seeing Pittsburgh, the Panthers, -4.5-point road favorites, -4 at other shops. So I guess we could call it -4.25. Always make sure to shop around, guys. Get the best number. 40 being the total. Low total here in Charlottesville, Matt.
Yeah, well, I mean, Virginia's offense has been brutal. Obviously, they scored 28 on North Carolina, but North Carolina's defense is exceptionally atrocious. The thing to notice there from that game is Virginia was without their top 3 wide receivers and their top running back. And so you can get away with that against North Carolina. You can't get away with that against Pittsburgh. So my lean is to Virginia if I get good information or if we can find out how many of those wide receivers are back. If the running back is back, Brennan Armstrong's been a massive disappointment this season, and I would not be surprised. Now, I have no information to say this, to confirm this or anything. I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Armstrong transfers next year or some of these other people. The offense has not been a good fit for him. The fit of Tony Elliott trying to work with Brendan Armstrong just hasn't been very good. Virginia's defense has shown some cracks lately. Pittsburgh's offense hasn't really been that good. I do kind of like Virginia a little bit here, but once again, we kind of have to find out, Dontavian Wicks and Keaton Thompson and some of those guys, they have to play because, as I said, you can get away with that against North Carolina, but you can't get away with that against Pittsburgh.
Heading to the Big Ten up next, Indiana and Ohio State. Tough handicap here, Matt. Name your score. Sounds like right up your alley, man. Buckeyes -40-point home favorites in the horseshoe, 58 being the total. So 58 the total, laying 40 with a top 3 or 4 team in the country. Any interest here in the Hoosiers and Buckeyes?
Yeah. The one thing that also complicates this thing as of now, frigid temperatures and a little bit of wind. So that might help because we saw Ohio State looked mediocre against Northwestern in the wind, although I don't think it's going to be as much as it was in Northwestern. There's no look-ahead factor here for Ohio State. C.J. Stroud's in a battle for the Heisman. He's going to want to, whip it up a little bit. So I would potentially look at like a C.J. Stroud touchdown passing prop here. Indiana is a horrendous secondary. If this thing gives me the cold and the wind or it disappears, I love CJ Stroud. It's going to be like 2.5, could be 3.5 even. I don't think it matters. I think we see CJ Stroud potentially throw 4 or 5 touchdowns in the first half maybe and doesn't even play in the second half. Ohio State should romp, but as you said, I don't like these name your score things. If you can get a team total, maybe play the over on Ohio State. DraftKings doesn't do any team totals over 30-point spreads, so you're not going to find it there, but maybe somebody else's book will have it. I think Ohio State names their score here.
Missouri at Tennessee up next. Tennessee, the Vols, near 3 touchdowns. Actually, at some shops, it is 3 touchdowns, -20.5. The consensus number as we're talking midweek, 57 being the total. The Volunteer offense was finally stopped last week, Matt. Is that a replica for the Missouri defense to kind of replicate here, or is this too much of a talent disparity between Missouri's defense and Georgia's defense?
Well, it was so nice to have a Hendon Hooker Heisman ticket live as long as it did, and it still might be live. I mean, he could still have a great time and still, go nuts in the SEC title game if they make it. But it was such a nice value too. It was over 50-1. Drew, what's the motivation for? I mean, obviously Tennessee has motivation, but what's the chance there's a hangover here early? Missouri's defense, I feel like, is not terrible, right, Drew? I mean, their offense isn't very good, and the only way they win this game or keep it interesting is if they keep this to a lower score. But I feel like Missouri's defense isn't that terrible, are they, Drew?
No, I lost some money going up against Missouri, and to tell you the truth, they went kind of toe-to-toe with the Gators, about a month ago, and they've been riding a little bit under the radar. Their quarterback's, elusive. He kind of makes plays a little bit better than you would think. I don't know. I mean, I actually think it sets up well for Tennessee, and I don't think your ticket's dead on Hooker just because if they go 11-1 in the SEC East, they're not going to make the championship game, but they could still kind of slip into a number, the 3rd or 4th slot in the playoff. They're not totally dead. And if that happens and Hooker puts up, a big end of the season, I think you got a shot there. I mean, not that he's the leader, but it's still alive. Your Heisman ticket with them, and Tennessee's still very much alive. We know the SEC bias is alive and well. And I'm not saying that bragging as an SEC alumni. I'm just trying to be as real as possible. If you only have 1 loss from an SEC, you're still alive to make the playoffs. You got Maryland and Penn State up next. Nittany Lions minus doubles here, -10 at home, 59 being the total. Terps and the Nittany Lions up next, Matt.
Weather alert here as well. Remnants of Nicole could be infecting this game with some rain and some wind. So certainly that's something you want to look for. And you should look for it as we kind of go throughout the week if the track or anything changes here. Penn State's the better team. There's no look ahead factor here. Their secondary matches up very well against Maryland, who wants to throw it a lot. And so that's my concern with regards to Maryland. Their team total is 23.5 or so, especially if rain and wind is in the forecast. I like the under there. I don't think Maryland's going to do a lot of running on Penn State here. So I like under 23.5 potentially if the weather forecast holds and the wind kind of negates the Maryland passing attack a little.
He's Matt Josephs. Check him out, sportsmemo.com. We got one game left. We'll get his most confident play for the section as well. But sportsmemo.com, Matt Josephs, 3 straight profitable years in college football. And VMOS, number 1 at Sports Memo for college football the last 3 years. Also off to a solid start in college basketball. He knows his mid-majors. If you're looking for information, he's your guy on Twitter as well at mid-major Matt. We got 145, 146, the rotation to end it here, Matt. Boston College and NC State, 41 being the total. We're seeing the Wolfpack minus 19-point home favorites.
I mean, this is tough. NC State's been playing really well. They're coming off the win over Wake Forest. MJ Morris hasn't been a bad quarterback for NC State. We know how good their defense is. Clearly, there's some people who believe in this defense because Boston College's team total is 11.5. You got to wonder what's left in Boston College's tank. A lot of injuries, no bowl game coming up. What's their motivation here? It would be NC State or pass, but I'm probably not going to play anything in this game.
All right, Matt. Great stuff as always, man. Do you have a most confident play for us before we shut it down?
So I think it's either going to be the Maryland team total under, which is 23.5 now on DraftKings, or if your book offers it, I'm looking at the CJ Stroud touchdown passes over. If it's 3.5, if it's 4.5, I mean, even if it's 4.5, I might sprinkle a little bit because you're probably going to get it at a plus price. So CJ Stroud touchdown passes over, ideally looking for 3.5 at maybe a plus price, or the Maryland team total under, which right now is 23.5 on DraftKings.
Okay, I think more people will have access to the Maryland team total. So is it okay if I put you down for that one?
Sure.
Okay, under 23.5 for the Maryland team total. Matt Josephs, most confident play, guys. Go listen to his radio show, ESPN Richmond, coming up at the top of the hour. We got to get him out of here. Great job, as always. Any final thoughts before we shut this down, Matt?
No, looking forward to it. And as always, Drew, a good job by you. And certainly looking forward to it. Check out my plays at sportsmemo.com.
Check them out, guys. Number 1, last 3 years, sportsmemo.com in college football. He'll be back next week leading us off here, college football, every game on the board podcast. Please smash that like button, guys. Feel free to comment below, and we'll be back at 3:45 Eastern with Teddy Covers, part number 2, every game on the board.